Well, lads, here we are again. Today we're going to be talking about MMA fighters and bad tattoos. Now, I think that bad tattoos and sports athletes kind of go hand in hand, but find it more especially with MMA fighters. And I don't know what the cause of that could be, really. Could it be because of CTE and this just leads to making bad decisions? Could it be that dedicating your life to a sport makes for bad artistic decisions? Or is it just because you have more money does not mean you have better taste? Well, let's see. But for me, I think tattoos can be very subjective because for one person, the tattoo could look amazing, but for another person, it might look bad. But for this video, we're just going to go with the idea that my opinion about them is all correct and everyone else is wrong. And if you don't agree with me, tough. Go watch someone else's videos. Anyway, I've separated the tattoos into four categories. We have acceptable, which to me is something that's fine. It means it's consistent that if an average person looks at the tattoo, they could be like, okay, I can see what the person was going for. We have passable, which would mean it's a tattoo that could have more of a meaning to somebody else, but at first glance, most people might think it's a little bit bad or a little bit weird. Then we have dog shit, which is kind of self-explanatory. These tattoos are terrible that nobody should get. And then we have Kevin Lee, which I think everybody knows from watching Kevin Lee's career is never make the same decisions as Kevin Lee when it comes to fighting or in real life. But anyway, let's move on and talk about my first person. Now, the first person's tattoos I want to look at is Dan Hooker's. And Dan Hooker's tattoos to me are dog shit. Like, don't get me wrong, I can see he spent a lot of money on this, but when I look at the tattoos, to me it kind of screams midlife crisis. Because the tattoos he has looks like the kind of guy that would hang out at a skate park at 40 years old and offer to buy beer for kids. And this is just because it looks extremely new metal. Like he has two sleeves, a chest piece, a piece above his groin, and some leg tattoos as well. Now we went from extremely clean cut to this. So I don't know what's going on in Dan Hooker's personal life, but these tattoos scream to me that something could be going crazy. Now, I personally wouldn't get any of these tattoos because I can tell you spend a lot of money on them, but there's no real consistency between the styles. Like it's like they want to look badass, but when you look at how old he is, like these tattoos look good in like a 17, 18-year old. But on someone that's going to be pushing 40 soon, these look pretty bad. Like, I don't know if it's just CTE because there's bad striking defense that makes him think that these look good, or if he actually just genuinely thinks these are good tattoos. Who's to say? But I think they match his style of fighting because, in theory, they look badass and that they're really in your face, but like his defense, poorly executed. Anyway, let's move on to my next tattoo, and that's going to be Mr. Diego Lopez, which for me, I'm going to say possible. Now, I'm saying this about his chest piece, which is believe, achieve, make it happen. Personally, I think this is a pretty bad tattoo, especially when it comes to writing. Like anything that's written, I think can be quite bad as a tattoo because the calligraphy is very, very subjective. But the one thing I do like about this tattoo is that I think this is keeping him motivated to try and be the best fighter that he can be. Because I imagine he wakes up every morning and the first thing he sees when he looks in the mirror is that. So it's a constant reminder for him to push forward and work hard to make what he wants to happen in his career actually come to fruition. So for this one, I'm kind of giving him a little bit more of a pass. Also because I quite like him as a fighter, but more so that it has more of a meaning behind his tattoo. It's not just a piece that he's getting done in his chest. You can tell when he got this tattoo, he got it for a reason, to keep himself motivated with his career. So I'm saying passable. I don't think anybody could take off this tattoo, could pull off this tattoo. For example, if you're an accountant, probably not. But if you're an MMA fighter, you have a little bit more of a chance. Okay, let's move on to my next one. And my next one is Max Holloway. No, I actually do quite like Max Holloway's other tattoos. Like the ones he has on his chest and his shoulders are actually quite nice because you can tell there's a lot of detail, they're tribal, you can tell they have a deeper meaning to them. But the fact that he got his name tattooed in his stomach, to me, this is a dog shit tattoo because anybody that gets their name tattooed on themselves is either narcissistic or a complete moron. Actually, usually the two in that Venn diagram. But it's not just exclusive to Max Holloway, it's also for Justin Gaethje and Conor McGregor. All these name tattoos, like I actually think maybe am I being too harsh? Is this kind of them thinking forward into the future? Because the way they fight, they're definitely going to have CTE, and for McGregor, caused by sniff sniff, how are you getting on? That they're actually thinking like, when I'm in my late 40s, I'm not going to remember anything because of my CTE. So I'm getting my name tattooed on myself. So I'll always remember my name, which could be a genius play. But I'm looking at these tattoos as an outsider looking in, taking away the fact that these guys probably won't remember how to eat porridge when they're in their 40s. And anybody that gets their name tattooed on themselves, I'm sorry. Well, actually, no, I'm not sorry. I actually think you're an absolute moron because it just looks terrible and awful. And anybody that sees it being like, really, man, you can't even remember your own name. You have a wallet, you have your ID. Like, it's just absolutely moronic to me to get your name tattooed on yourself. So, if you're ever thinking about getting your name tattooed on yourself or anybody's name, could be the name of your child, could be the name of your girlfriend, wife, never do it. Never, ever, ever get a name tattooed on yourself because you usually get either covered up or removed. Anyway, let's move on to my next person who's going to be the first acceptable one that I'm seeing today, and that is Alexander Volkov. Now, his tattoo I quite like because of two reasons. One, it's a very big piece and it's a consistent style throughout. I think it's supposed to be like a samurai helmet covered by fire or something like this, which I think is interesting because it's a very big piece, so it's very in your face. And because Alexander Volkov is a very big guy, it suits him very well. Like you can actually see all the detail. If you're a kind of smaller guy, or if it's like a smaller tattoo and not much detail, it's kind of bad because you don't know what you're looking at. With this, you have a look at it, you know exactly what you're seeing. And whenever he fights, I actually find myself looking at the tattoo the entire time. So I actually think this is a very acceptable tattoo. Um, Plus, we can see that he spent a lot of money on this. This is not a cheap tattoo, and he spent hours getting this done. Like, I actually think how many hours did he miss from training to get this piece done? But I think it's kind of worth it because the piece itself is very, very, very good. So I give it an acceptable rating. I think most tattoos aren't very good, but if you get acceptable, to me, that's actually you're fine. Most people can get away with it. Well, not most people. Only Alexander Volkov can get away with this. Let's move on to my next one, which is Alex Pereira. Whew, okay, Alex Pereira. His tattoos, I'm going to say passable. Now, the ones I want to talk about specifically, because he has a few, he has a kickboxing championship belt, he has a UFC belt, he has some dragons, and he has a kickboxing tattoo. Kickboxing tattoo, I'm okay with because obviously he's accomplished so much in that sport and he's talked about that it's his favorite sport, so I can kind of give him a pass for that. If you're one of these people that gets like a BJJ or a karate tattoo or like a Muay Thai tattoo after only training for 1 to 2 years and then quitting, that's pretty cringy. But since he's actually very, very accomplished in kickboxing, I'm going to say that's possible. You've actually gone out and done the work and been one of the best fighters in that sport. So fair enough. The ones I want to talk about specifically are his dragon tattoos. Now, I think most people that get a dragon tattoo looks pretty awful. Like, it looks extremely cringy, to be honest. It's like, I want to look badass, so I need a badass dragon tattoo. Most people can't pull this off because most people get done are just boring white people. But Alex Pereira is a very intimidating, scary man. So when I see his dragon tattoos, I'm not going to say anything because he can pull it off. But that's just because if you're Alex Pereira, yes, you can have a dragon tattoo. If you're not Alex Pereira, you can't have a dragon tattoo. Sorry, guys, dem the rules. All right, let's move on. Who's up next? It is, yes, Kevin Lee. Well, as I said earlier, Kevin Lee has his own category because Kevin Lee only makes bad decisions, both in life and in fighting. Like, come on, like, be serious. Look at this head tattoo. Like, the thing that makes me upset about this the most, or makes me think this is awful, is that his MMA career is pretty much over and he's in his early 30s. There's no way that he made enough money to retire for the rest of his life. He's going to need to go to get a real job. And imagine you're an employer and you have this guy coming in and you see his head. The first thing you're going to think is ex-convict. And it just looks awful. Like it looks terrible. I don't know who makes these decisions. Like someone should have just, when Kevin said, I want to get this tattoo done, the tattoo artist or one of his close friends should have just sat down and been like, Kevin, no. Because if he's going to go work in a shop, it's going to look terrible and people are going to be intimidated by him. And sorry, it's just awful. It's up there with some of the worst decisions that Kevin Lee has made in his entire career. Yeah, there's nothing really to talk about. It's just awful. Like, what's it going to look like when he's in his 50s and he's not a super athletic guy? He's going to have a black stain on the back of his head, and everyone's going to think he looks like an absolute idiot. I'm sorry. I have a few things against Kevin Lee, and this tattoo is one of them. Anyway, let's move on to my next one. Ah, Ian. Okay, Ian, we're going to have a bit of a talk now. Now, I think Ian's tattoos are dog shit for the one reason is that they're all basic white girl tattoos, which I think kind of suits Ian Gary's personality or the Mrs. Machado personality. Because just look at his tattoos are terrible. Like there's no consistent style. He has small tattoos all over his body. He's some on his chest, some on his torso, a few on his arms, on his hands. The thing he's missing, which I think would actually suit his personality as well, is maybe a tramp stamp, and that would kind of complete the whole set. Because it's just awful. Like these are the tattoos I would expect to see a 25-year-old girl have. And this guy is a mid-20s white guy that's supposed to be a professional fighter. I think this is also one of the reasons that most people aren't really intimidated by Ian Gary. Because if you look at his tattoos, one of them says the future is inevitable. Dude, your future is inevitable that these tattoos are just going to age terribly. And this is actually kind of funny because I find that no one really respects Ian Gary, and I think anybody that knows anything about tattoos don't really respect his tattoo choices either. I don't know, maybe his wife did pick out his tattoos as well, because these do feel like white girl tattoos. So he had to go to his wife and be like, "Oh, love, can you tell me what tattoo would look good here? Because I don't really know what to get." And she just told him what to get, like she does with all decisions in his life and career. But anyway, Ian Gary, terrible white girl tattoos. Let's move on. Ah, Marvin Vittori. Now, this one is actually surprising because I think, like me, most people think that Marvin Vittori is a bit of an idiot, which, to be honest, is a little bit true. But when it comes to his tattoo choices, he actually is very good. He's actually very smart because one, he has a consistent style. He has a kind of Japanesey yakuza tattoo, which I think actually looks really cool, and he keeps it consistent to one area, so it looks very, very well done. And you can tell by looking at this tattoo that it costs a lot of money. However, one issue I could find with this tattoo that could affect Marvin Vittori is that if he ever goes to Japan, he's kind of screwed because a Japanese person sees that tattoo in Japan, they're going to be terrified that he's part of the Yakuza. But overall, in the West, like, 'cause I think he lives in the United States now, in Las Vegas, where he trains out of, these tattoos look really, really, really good. And I think most people, when they see him fight, say whatever you will about him being ugly, being stupid, and not having the best fighting style. You can't fault the guy's choice of tattoos because these tattoos actually look really, really good. And he spent money on them, and he has them in a place that could be covered up if anything happened. If he decided didn't want to be a fighter anymore, or he could take them off and show them off. I think these tattoos will age well too. Like I think smart choice by Marvin Vittori. One of the very few smart choices he's made in his entire life, but I like it. Anyway, moving on to my next one, which is ah Cody face tattoos. Okay, this is where we're going to have a talk. Face tattoos. Stay away from face tattoos. And I'm saying this because the three areas when I was growing up, I was told never to get tattoos: hands, neck, and face. Now, hands, you can kind of get away with it a little bit. Neck as well, a little bit more. But face tattoos, Cody, come on, face tattoos are just goddamn Awful. Always. Like, the thing is, he has kids as well. Imagine he goes to one of his parent teacher meetings or to like one of his kids' events. He's going to have to look other parents in the face with a tattoo. And imagine your son or daughter is hanging out with his kid and you see this is the dad. Especially because the way he fights, he's probably not going to be remember how to eat porridge when he's in his 40s. This guy gets a bloody face tattoo. Someone really should have stopped him. And right now as well, okay, you might say, hey, looks okay, looks good. It makes him look like a badass. He's a fighter. Like, yeah, fair enough. But what's it going to look like when he's 50 and his face is all old and wrinkly and that tattoo is still there? I don't think he really thought this tattoo through that much. Probably thought like, I want a new tattoo and I haven't tattooed my face yet. Let's get one done. And it's not even cool. Like it's not even interesting. It's just two lines on his face. Like there's nothing interesting or unique about it. Honestly, okay, to everybody out there, if you're ever thinking about getting a face tattoo, don't. Avoid. It doesn't look good. Everyone thinks you look like a psychopath. And I don't think Cody looks like a psychopath, but I think he looks like an absolute moron with this tattoo. All right, let's move on to my last one, which is Robert Whittaker. Okay, Robert Whittaker's tattoos. This one, I'm saying passable. If he only had a shoulder piece, I would say acceptable. Because if you look into it, it's actually a very nice and well designed piece. And I think he got this done because it's part of his Maori lineage. I think he might be part Maori on his mother's side. And yeah, with these kind of tribal tattoos or traditional culture tattoos, I'm kind of more being like, oh, if it's a person's culture and they come from there and they want to represent it, fair enough. And if they look good, even better. But the thing that I'm going to say makes these tattoos passable is the Southern Cross that he has on his chest. Now, to most people, we know that this being a symbol for Australia, where Robert Whittaker fights out of, so it's a way of representing Australia as part of his body. But to an average casual fan, especially someone that's not that bright from a country that's not that bright, the United States, for example, that don't know a lot about Australia, are just going to see this as some stars on his chest. And to me, for a casual fan, for someone that's a casual fan, that does look pretty weird, especially on a guy that fights like Robert Whittaker because he's such a savage when he fights. Yeah, I'm going to say these tattoos are passable because if you actually look into the meaning behind his star tattoos, he got it done because his dad got it done when he was younger, blah blah blah. So it's actually interesting. But if we look at it all over, I'm going to say it's passable, not great, but not terrible. Anyway, let me know. Do you disagree with anybody I said? If anybody thinks that Kevin Lee's tattoo should go to acceptable, then you can just never look at any more of my videos and never subscribe because you're just wrong and I never want to talk with you. If you have a discussion about anybody else on the list, let me know in the comments below and we can talk a little bit more about tattoos. What do you think? Do MMA fighters usually have consistently bad tattoos? And these are what I'm going to say are professional MMA fighters. I've also spent some time around amateur MMA fighters and people that don't make money, their tattoos are even worse. But anyway, I digress. Let me know in the comments below. Like my videos, share it with anybody you think might be interested, and I'll see you in the next one, boys.